Welcome to today's Around the WaterCooler session. My name's David Savage, and thank you for joining us for this chat where we're going to be talking about the successful adoption of new ways of working through secure connectivity and cloud services. And to do that, we've got a panel of three guests. So without wasting any time, let's dive straight into who we're talking to today. Kelvin, would you mind introducing yourself and telling everyone what you do?
So my name is Kelvin Kroll. I am the CIO for EMEA, for the Flight Centre Travel Group. For those not familiar with Flight Centre, we do both retail and corporate travel management programs for small to medium to large size enterprises.
Brilliant, thank you. Jag.
Hi everyone, I'm Jag Sohal. I'm a senior IT business relationship manager at NFU Mutual. I'm also one of 4 leading advocates of business relationship management in the UK.
And lastly, Steve, would you introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, my name is Steve Braden, and I am I'm the head of product in the cloud and security division for Virgin Media O2 Business.
So this first question, I think I'll stick with you, Steve, and get the Virgin Media O2 Business angle on this. There's obviously been a rush to adopt cloud technology over the last 18 months, and businesses who previously might not have adopted technology realizing for very obvious reasons that they have to. So how best, from a Virgin Media O2 perspective, do you think that we can support these organizations as they adopt this technology?
So you look at the traditional network, and it's very much of a branch to the data center using fixed lines with firewalls, where all the apps are needed are actually inside the data center, and that's called your castle and moat kind of approach. When you fast forward now, your access to these applications is via different devices, capabilities and services, and lots of these applications are now all in the cloud as well. So you need a much more intelligent approach to how you access these services, and that's SD-WAN. And SD-WAN routes your traffic to where it's needed. And so basically it determines the application and works out where it is. And so when using the Virgin Media Network, we also have peering with all of the key cloud providers. So Microsoft, AWS, Google, Facebook, etc. They're all linked to our network and basically enable us to link through to them. So you don't have to go over the internet to them. We've got peering to them automatically. And that then gives you a really high level of quality of service, which then really ensures that that application, because let's be honest, everybody's interested in the application. That's what it's all about, and the application delivery. And that's where we really have a great service in terms of delivering a quality of service in both the overlay in the technology and in the underlay and the physical side of it. So and then you then say, well, what's the difference between these two models? Is that the castle and moat model really assumes that your private network plays a very big part in your overall security. So your connectivity between your 2 points is secure, and you're then keeping all the bad guys out. But that's really proven to be incorrect now, because people are bringing in their own devices, they're bringing in their own networks and basically and access points and data and applications, and that's really where the attackers are now going for is in that data and those endpoints. So for cloud applications, focus has got to be on connecting the endpoint to the application via the shortest and obviously the most performing path. And the private network now kind of needs to get out of the way. You also have to recognize that long term that organizations don't want the hassle and cost of implementing multiple different security models. So it's much easier to actually never trust the network and use zero trust, while at the same time supporting your remote working and cloud strategy. And the unique thing here that Virgin Media provides is to take their customer on that journey. Regardless of where they are in terms of executing your cloud strategy, we can build a network around them that evolves as they progress. So with the SD-WAN, we use the internet as an underlay by default. So the customer then moves applications from the data center to the cloud. It's all just soft config. And as long as you're not using more bandwidth and don't need to change your bandwidth capabilities, you can literally take them from 100% being on premises to 100% cloud with just config changes only.
Sorry, Kelvin, you were keen to jump in.
Yeah. So I'd echo certainly some of those comments that Steve has made. I think when we started the transition, we've had a remote working solution for a long time because we use VDI solutions. So the transition for us to cloud was was a multifaceted one. And certainly when we started to look at it more holistically, that idea of implementing a zero trust environment kept coming up time and time again. We were very used to putting the guardrails all around the infrastructure and putting tiny little holes where we needed them to be, and certainly overnight for the whole world, we almost went to this this environment now where we were a long way away from our traditional way of operating. So we operated a store network. Our people all came into the store network so we could secure the endpoints that way. Now they're all sitting in their lounge rooms and working from home. So whilst the VDI concept helped a lot, we have seen our application suite and the way that people are collaborating pushing up against the limits of some of that type of technology. And so now looking to reintroduce more rich clients rather than thin clients is the way of operating in the future. So stretching out our network and making sure absolutely that it's secure is number one priority, really. And so yeah.
You've picked up on that secure point, and Steve mentioned about the hassle and the cost kind of weighing perhaps on the mind of technology leaders. Just quickly, draw back the curtain a little bit, Wizard of Oz style, but Steve supplied me with this stat that 70% of services, this is according to Gartner, by the way, 70% of services and application will be in the cloud by 2024. We were talking about, was the network going to be ready for that level of adoption? Security is a really interesting one. I think that I'm a fairly typical customer or end user within most organizations. I seem to be doing more on my mobile, despite being at home, because working hours are bleeding a little bit. I'll pick up my phone and I'll access these various different applications that we're all using via my mobile far more than I used to. And I suppose that's got to be a concern from the security point of view as well. There's far more, I feel like there's far more end user device kind of activity going on than there was even when we were in the office.
Sure, yeah, without question, and I think for many years there was vendors pushing BYOD concepts and this work-life balance and being flexible with in-office, out of office type working arrangements. And again, within a short period of time, we were having to deal with, as an organisation, we were having to deal with people now working from home, where traditionally we hadn't supplied them with company mobility devices. And so in a lot of cases, they're now bringing their own device to operate within the work environment. And as I said before, fortunately, we had a pretty strong VDI offering working at the time, but being able to support and I guess mature, because one of the things that we're certainly seeing as an organisation now is as everything opens back up, there's certainly an ongoing expectation that this hybrid working life is a thing that's going to stay. So the types of services and types of more permanent arrangements that we need to put in place now naturally then widen out the scope beyond, as I said before, VDI solutions to how can we get more flexibility into their lives again.
So Jack, very quickly, you kind of have your finger in the pulse about what the business feels with regards to this. And we're talking a lot about the underlying infrastructure, but in terms of the drivers behind the adoption of this technology, from a behavioral point of view, what are you seeing?
I think it's huge. I think from an IT leadership point of view, we need to recognise the human impact that this is all having. It's great that 70% of services and applications will be available. On the flip side, the other bit of research is the article around the Great Resignation. People are burning out. People are now not wanting to have all the noise and all the chatter of technology in their homes. I think individuals will insist on working in a hybrid fashion or not, but whatever suits them. So now we're going down to a very individual, personal choice, because now people are factoring, well, what's the balance that suits my children? What's the balance that suits vulnerable members of my family that now potentially rely on me? So there's some huge factors in the mix, I feel, when we talk about all the great services and technologies that we're introducing. Also the mindset. I think in the last 18 months, people are shifting away from the city. So where you would have had your offices with all the kit and accessibility, or lived close to the city where the infrastructure was robust, we've got people now who are moving much further away. They've already made that commitment and decision to move. So where will we have the lines and infrastructure outside of the major cities? And that's what I've been experiencing with my business areas, is the requests now for more dedicated lines. So if you've got 4 or more active devices or people in your home, and you don't have the bandwidth to support your work now, which your home is your place of work, our employees going to insist dedicated lines, and have we factored a cost for it? Because it's real, because I'm getting those requests today.
I have to say, I moved out of West London to rural Kent because West London is a hellhole when it comes to connectivity. And a new building, Kent's got fibre, so brilliant. Steve, I know you were keen to jump in when Kelvin was talking, so if I just drag the conversation back a second to the point that you were keen to make.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, obviously with the merger of obviously Virgin Media and O2, our portfolio now of security services encompasses a whole range of endpoint detection services and unified endpoint management. So there is a whole range of different services that we now offer in that space, and are looking to kind of consolidate and bring together and wrap around that whole portfolio as we go forward.
Kelvin, Jag was talking there about dedicated lines, and I know I'm being a bit facetious in my example of moving out of London, but that cost does sound like a bit of a nightmare from a CIO point of view.
Yes, it is, but I think that what I'd probably say to that is there's almost a greater hidden cost in some respects to those people who've sort of migrated and even switched their working life now to this hybrid working model. So yes, the tyranny of distance, but and connectivity in their local areas, but also the supportability of those people. Because if things go wrong with their equipment, it's easy to be responsive to people when they're all congregated in a common place, right? But it's having the right partners and providers that you're picking to be able to actually get the reach that you need within reason is also a challenge, and that side of things can add quite a cost to the operation as well, So we sort of sanction guidance on what sort of equipment, and connectivity we want to see when we're testing people's home offices, but it's not always that easy, particularly in some of the out of metropolitan sort of areas.
It feels like we're talking almost in a kind of a way that the security industry used to talk maybe 5 or 10 years ago, very risk-led at the moment. But just in terms of, if we look on the front foot and be a bit more positive about some of the services being adopted, with regards to those services, what are the kind of the user cases where you're going, oh, that's brilliant, that's facilitating a new way of working, that's adding real benefit? I mean, you must be seeing some stuff that's really innovative that you're really enthused by, right?
The most obvious one for me is the amount of near real time and far more informal collaboration that can happen, but because of the tools that we've got at our disposal, whether it be that's probably one of the other challenges that we're having at the moment. There's a plethora of them out there, so quite often you have to be the master of 4 or 5 or 6 meetings / chat / collaboration type tools. But certainly what we saw is the ability to virtually connect to people really quickly, have short, sharp conversations, stuff that was even difficult in the hallway conversation sense of the word, because you had that physical interaction with people. We had things like Skype before, but they were very sort of chat, and things were quite email led and booking a meeting to have a conversation led. So much so that it's been interesting as we've started to come back into the office and still seeing that how ingrained that easy collaboration is, where people are still teamsing each other when they're sitting on opposite sides of the same floor, so it's trying to get some of that contact and person to person back in is I guess one of the benefits of coming back and having an office to come back to. But I definitely, I would say that almost overnight for us had to become we had to have the tools to enable that, but the adoption of it was seamless and really easy, and as I think aided domestically and globally, people communicating, collaborating, and workshopping together.
That's interesting. I mean, Jag, I'd love to get your perspective on that, because I'm enthused to hear Kelvin say that, because the general narrative at the moment is flexibility and hybrid working means productivity up, collaboration down. And that would suggest that there's possibly a slightly different narrative.
I think there's a few points here. So yes, you could say productivity's gone up, but when we had a return to office day, which was half a day dedicated for our team, I had one person in my team, my colleague, say, I'm not being productive enough. And that wasn't the purpose of the day, for us to be together to say, I'm panicking, I'm not being productive enough. So we need to assess as leaders what productivity really meant, and kind of backtrack a little bit here and say to people, actually, in a role that I do, which is more, thinking, strategizing and coaching leaders to solutions, I'm not here to react to a message that comes through instantly, on my Teams chatter. That's not productivity. To disrupt me to then focus on that and have 10 or a dozen messages a day. So we need to get people back to what real productivity was, and that's more the considered strategic thinking, and that we weren't all meant to be working in a more real-time operational way. Kelvin, you also mentioned the different collaboration tools, and one thing our team's doing in learning and development is looking at an integrated solution to Teams. So actually it will help surface the right training for you, but then have one portal for all of it. So that's your one, and in Teams as well, which I think is superb, way of doing it for people. So it's those few, iterations that we can make now, having had this technology flood everybody, is to just take a bit of a back step and think about how we can do things a bit smarter and a bit more user-friendly.
We're describing a pretty complex environment here, listening to Jag and Kelvin, when it comes to services and applications and the environment that businesses need to be able to thrive. When you're talking to organizations as Virgin Media O2, what hurdles are those organizations describing that they need to overcome?
Okay, so obviously there is the outcomes of what they're trying to do. We talk here a little bit about support of remote working, which obviously has been a key requirement for the last few years. Ease of access to key applications, cloud applications obviously have their own access requirements and need their own security. And then the final part really is obviously the reduction of technical debt and the ability to really drive agility and flexibility into organizations. A lot of organizations, if they are born in the data center, are now trying to migrate to cloud services to give them that flexibility and that ability to kind of move and change direction quickly and easily. Whereas organizations that have been born in the cloud, the startups are moving much faster and are able to really build a different culture and a different environment to their capabilities. And that really is where it's going. And obviously you then look at the capabilities around cloud services, and it really does allow you to really move much faster and start to tap into an ecosystem of different services capabilities.
Just quickly before we finish, then, listening to Steve mention there, to kind of technical debt and legacy, that's something that we often hear from organizations. Jag, is I imagine that's something that you're probably dealing with, but anything else that you'd add in terms of those hurdles?
Yeah, I mean, I think, pros and cons to all of this, really. I think the pros have been how enthused my business colleagues have been about all the flexibility that's been available, the integration opportunities that are available. So we're seeing a lot more asks of integration tools into our existing Microsoft and Azure platforms and things like that. a rise in the expansion of robotics and bots as well. So all positive and great enablers that we're giving back to our organisation. But the hurdles, as you say, and it'll be quite telling for people, is if your organisation is not reviewing the infrastructure at this stage, if you've been 18 months down the line, you haven't reviewed your infrastructure, you've not revisited your agreements with our cloud providers, and you've not addressed issues with kit, mobiles, mobility, and anything in this regard, it will hamper, your staff in terms of motivation and, possibly down to well-being as well. So that would be my advice to providers. If you're not doing it already, do it now. Review your Windows, Citrix, VPN, anything that will make things more seamless for people.
Kelvin, I'm sorry. It always feels that there's always one person that you come to last when everyone's said everything, and then say, "Hey, anything else to add?" But probably captured most things there. But anything you would add?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly for us, as I've already mentioned before, we've had a good adoption of it. We're turning the corner now with COVID and getting people back into work and just trying to make sure that as people move into that hybrid working model, that the experience they have between working at home and working in the office is seamless, and as seamless as possible for them, so that they can have that flexibility to work the way that they need to. That's true work-life balance, not having to come into the office because certain things work better in the office, and it's getting that balance right, I think.
Look, I want to thank all three of you for taking the time to join us today. If you've enjoyed today's episode of Around the WaterCooler, please stay on the CIO WaterCooler website. There are plenty more of these sessions for you to stream and to get information from. There's also the one-on-one CIO WaterCooler TV episodes, so do stay and have a browse.